It's All Things MMA on KCLR, episode 31 in terms of the podcast and the video side of things. My name is Ken McGuire, joined as always by Mr. Miles Price. How are you, sir? How are things?
Not too bad, Ken. How's your day going? It's beautiful out there today.
So far, so good. Thank you very much. We've plenty to discuss this week. Least of all starts with a look back at the events of last weekend. For last time out on the podcast, we had a chat about UFC 260. We were going to be taking a look at Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou with the UFC Heavyweight Championship on the line. My Stipe fanboy was shining through, knowing that Ngannou was going to be some element of a terrifying prospect. We know the result at this stage. We do have a new heavyweight champion. Couple of thoughts for me straight off the bat. One, Stipe looked like he wasn't at the races. And two, Ngannou looked way more composed, way more relaxed, way more focused, and way more ready for this than I think both of us could have thought last time.
Yeah.
How did you see? What's your reaction?
Well, my predictions absolutely went out the window because I thought it was going to be the same thing all over again from the last fight. So that's just MMA for you, isn't it? It's so unpredictable. I mean, his the size difference was just immense. He just looked like he was just, it looked like a middleweight versus a heavyweight, didn't it? I mean, the amount of muscle and size that Ngannou has in comparison to Stipe is just insane.
Like when they hit the official weigh-in on Friday, we had Ngannou weigh in at 263, and then we had Stipe weigh in at 234. And I would say with rehydration and everything else, I would imagine Ngannou packed on that little bit more than Stipe by the time they got in on Saturday.
I'm really impressed with his wrestling as well. His wrestling. I know we only saw a little bit of the wrestling, but I thought his wrestling was very good, and it just shows his power to rock Stipe with the jab coming forward. I know it was like a forward momentum jab, so he probably had he had that momentum and size behind him, but like his power is just. And then Stipe just made that error, didn't he, of thinking that he rocked Ngannou.
Yeah.
And then came back in and he just got check hooked and just like out, you know.
And it was such a short left hook that did it as well. It just almost right from his side and just pop. And that was it. His legs went from under him. So where do you think then that Ngannou goes next, or what do you think comes next for it? Because we saw in the aftermath of the fight, there was all this tweeting and all this crack from John Jones going, "Show me the money, show me the money," and then a string of deleted tweets going, just release me already if you're not going to do it. Dana White was talking about putting Derek Lewis in there. We know it's all talk. The likelihood is that we're probably going to see John Jones and Ngannou go at it. I would doubt it's going to be anything else, really, is it?
I think John Jones seems to be a bit of a sensitive Sally, you know what I mean? And I feel like that he should, at this stage, you kind of think that he's kind of used to Dana's antics at this stage, because that's what they are. I feel like that Dana's just playing games with John Jones to kind of, I feel like he does that because he kind of doesn't like John. And he just says these things to wind him up. Like he makes promises, and then the press conferences, he kind of makes him out to be like he's a bit afraid and kind of stirs the pot. I think just out of his own entertainment, I think he stirs the pot and roils up John. And then, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, his business comes first for him. And, an executive biggest business decision is not Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, because that was an absolute disaster last time.
Oh, it was horrendous. It was quite possibly
want to repeat that. Like that was just terrible.
Yeah, and we know, like, in the manner that he put Stipe away this time, and in the run that Ngannou has been on as well, I think we're really seeing Ngannou's credentials as a main event performer who's going to bring something really, really big, and that's something that fans are going to want to pay for as well.
Yeah.
Second to that, and there's maybe one or two other fights that are worth having a look at. Tyron Woodley and Vicente Luque didn't go any way at all to plan for Tyron Woodley. He started quite well, started sprightly. He was, way more mobile, way more aggressive in trying to pressure Luque, and I suppose show a different side to Woodley is we haven't seen maybe since before he lost the title to Usman. Was that maybe 2 years ago now at this stage?
Yeah.
And then as happens with Woodley, gets rocked and gets rocked quite hard and gives up position on the ground, falls to the darts up against the cage. Are Woodley's days numbered in the UFC?
Um, it's kind of hard to know like what way Woodley's career is going to go now. I mean, he looked like there wasn't really too much said in regards to his performance in the press conference. I mean, Dana seemed to be pretty happy with how it went for him.
Yeah.
In regards to that, he started fast, he was being efficient, and I feel like that. You know, Woodley's just one of those guys we talked about him before. Is that when he's on, he's really on, and when he's off, he's like really off.
Yeah.
So it is kind of hard to know. It looked like it was going to be good for him,
Yeah.
but you know, he still
Such as the
lost
fight
fight.
game,
You know,
like, yeah.
and he's not exactly Dana's favorite guy in the world. You know, and he's not one of those champions that you'd be interested in tuning in on the welterweight division about. I think Kamaru was kind of the same. I don't think Kamaru was a very likable character, you know what I mean? And I think Tyrone is the same. And in a way, I think you know, Dana would probably like to see a bit more of a marketable character like Masvidal. Masvidal, you know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for him to jump back in there against Kamaru, but is he a more marketable champion? Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, he's just that type of character, isn't he? You know.
Well, we might look at that in a sec because that is coming up, and it's coming up pretty soon. Sean O'Malley overcame his kind of injury doubts and any real concerns. He put on a pretty solid performance over 3 rounds against Thomas Almeida. He had a chance to put it away within the first round, and it looked like he was kind of expecting that whole quote unquote walk off knockout. He wasn't quite sure what was going on. If he had gone in for the finish when he had Almeida on the fence or on the ground up against the cage, he could have been out and done in the first round. Instead, he finds himself going through a fairly hard fought second round. He did get the win with the knockout in the third. Where do you think that kind of decision making comes into play? Because we've spoken about decision making in the moment and fighters being able to react and you know, different levels of fight IQ. Is it a cockiness and a showboating thing from O'Malley where he just thinks, you know, this is it, I'm going to do it, I want another highlight reel finish, as opposed to going in and going, my job here is to finish. It doesn't matter if it's a highlight side of things or not.
I'm not really too fond of O'Malley as a character, to be honest with you. I think that he is, I think he drifts between cockiness and confidence.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's that type of character that the cockiness side of him is the little bit uncontrollable side of him, I feel like, is what's marketable. But there's definitely an air of confidence about him because the striking is very good. Like, there's no doubt about that, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't really like how he handled his loss. He basically didn't see it as a loss, which I don't think is a good sign of a strong mindset. I think it's a sign of fear of failure, actually. And I think that could be exploited by future opponents, you know, that he's very confident, but I feel like if you maybe bring him into some dark waters, that he's going to fail. But he has, obviously, going by his performance, I mean, like, he has the potential to be he's definitely world championship potential. I mean, it definitely was a moment of cockiness when he walked off. It wasn't confidence, you know, because if it was confidence, he would just have been calm, cool, collected. That comes with confidence, and he just would have zoned in, finished, job done, not taking shit personally. I'm not here to look good. I'm here to get the job done. You know what I mean? So it was an air of confidence, cockiness. I feel like that made him that mistake came from. But there's a silver lining to that. I mean, like, he still got 3 rounds of experience in. He still finished the fight later on. Does Almeida's record speak pretty loud, and his kind of stylistic match against O'Malley strategically placed? Yeah, I think so. I think his record looks good, but I think the style is perfect for O'Malley to beat up, you know, because records are for DJs in this sport, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is styles make fights, you know, that's just the way it is. Like, so, and I feel like that style was perfect for O'Malley. Would he do that to the likes of Peter Yan? Not a hope in hell would he do that to Peter Yan. he get absolutely clocked. And I feel like Peter Yan wouldn't be silly enough to stand with him for 3 rounds either. I think he'd take him down, to dismantle his wiry jiu-jitsu and just make it a 3 round, 5 round bore fest and just finish him.
Okay, we'll see if that ever comes to pass. It'll make for an
I
interesting
think it
matchup.
will. He's very marketable, you know.
You'd mentioned Masvidal and Usman. That's going to be coming up next. If I turn my attention to my little screen over here for UFC 261, that's going to be the main event. We've got 3 title fights at the top of the card. As we record today, the UFC have just released, and I love looking at fight posters. It's a glorious fight poster. But we've got Usman and Masvidal 2 at the top of the list.
What's the fight poster look like? I want to have a look at that now.
You're gonna want to have a look at this. It looks quite cinematic, close to Star Wars level stuff. But they've got 3 title fights on the go. They have Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal for the UFC welterweight championships. The second time of asking for both of them. Masvidal dropped the loss the last time, reckoned that he had figured out his way and the way to dethrone Usman. Then we also have Weili Zhang, who's making her defense of the strawweight title against Rose Namajunas, who's back in that title frame again. And then Valentina Shevchenko takes on Jessica Andrade for the women's flyweight title. 3 big ones to look forward to. Are we going to see, and we'll dip into this in maybe 2 weeks' time, but are we going to see any class of a different result between Usman and Masvidal? Do you think that the rounds that he last time will have made any difference when they meet this time around?
I think it's going to be a tougher night for Usman. There's no doubt about that, you know. And I feel like that Masvidal is just one of those guys that, like, I've always been a fan of Masvidal. I'm a fan of his character. I'm definitely I study his striking game a bit as well. I really do like his striking. Not too fond of the fact that he's a Trump supporter, but other than that, I feel like that I'm a big Masvidal fan, and I think that it's going to be a tougher night. But unfortunately, my fanboy needs to be put to one side. I feel like he's going to probably end up roughly the same. I know that the size difference doesn't play a factor, but again, it comes back to styles. Usman uses his style in a very grindy, grappling way when he needs to.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's so hard to see it not turning out the same way it did before, kind of, you know. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is another kind of, I made this prediction against Stipe and Ngannou, and that proved me wrong. So it's kind of this similar kind of scenario here again, isn't it? It's, you know, the kind of one-shot knockout artist, you know, who's very skilled, but, you know, that's where he gets all his highlights, and he has all those great knockouts, you know, against the kind of more savvy, experienced, in the sense that he doesn't really care about grinding out wins. Masvidal is very experienced, but, you know, he won't put his ego to one side in regards to, you know, grinding out a boring win, like, you know what I mean? He will just choose to firefight each time, really, you know.
Well, it's going to be a different, it's going to be a different setting as well. So while a few of these events have been taking place in the Apex, the UFC Apex in Vegas, 261 and 262, which comes next. So 261 is the 24th of April, and 262 we'll touch on very briefly, which is coming up in May. These are going to be in front of full houses. So it's going to be fan packed in Jacksonville in Florida for 261. That's got to have a big impact on things as well.
It's going to be interesting to see the crowd again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Considering
what we've looked at for the last year, where we've effectively listening to corners go at each other and throw instructions for over 12 months now at this stage anyway. So to see it back in front of an actual live audience and a live US audience should make for an interesting turn. Last one, just to stick on the UFC side of things and jump ahead to 262. It's been confirmed that Nate Diaz is making a return. He's making a return at welterweight, and he's been booked to take on Leon Edwards. So over the last, I suppose by the time that fight comes around in May, we're probably a year in the waiting to see Leon Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev go at it. They've had their bout. It's a little bit like kind of Tony Ferguson and Khabib. Their fight has been scrapped 2, 3, 4 times at this stage through a myriad of different ailments, we'll say. But for Diaz and Edwards, you don't see Diaz coming away with a win on this, regardless of, maybe his bank balance will tell a little bit different. But when the two of them match up on the Chandler Oliveira card, what do you expect to see at this stage?
I expect to kind of see Leon just the same kind of way that Masvidal picked off Diaz. I think that's going to be the kind of same way that Leon will pick off Diaz. I think he's going to sharp striking, take him down when he need. Now I can kind of. There's a part of me, see, I don't really like betting against Diaz too much because he's just one of them lads that he can, if he draws you into a firefight, you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Or he can pull off submissions at any stage on the floor. His jiu-jitsu is just that good. But, a savvy, like Leon Edwards, the likes of Leon Edwards and the likes of Masvidal, etc., they have high fight IQs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And although Diaz has a good fight IQ, I just don't think he has the same fight IQ as Leon Edwards. He's going to probably pick him off, good distance control, kind of mainly uses 1-2, zip in and out and just take him down maybe at the end of a round to win a round, but he's not going to get drawn into a firefight, and he's probably going to kick the leg off him as well, I'd say.
And we're going to see a new lightweight champion as well on the night.
Yeah,
that title is going to be up for grabs. Any early thoughts?
Oliveira.
Oh, really?
You
reckon he has it in him?
Sorry?
You reckon he has it in him?
Yeah, I feel like that Oliveira is just lightweight really suits him, doesn't it? And
he looks super against Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, looked brilliant against Tony Ferguson, really good. And I feel like that, Chandler is very good, very experienced, but he's a little bit of a short horse as well. He's muscly, but he's very small, and Oliveira is. And there's just a massive difference between the amount of time that Oliveira has been fighting in the UFC octagon compared to Chandler. Like Chandler's been in there for what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? Yeah, he's fought in Bellator for years, but it's just there's a confidence thing there. I think you know what I mean. It's like Charles has literally been in the UFC since he was 20 or 21 years of age. He's now 32 or something. You know what I mean?
It's a long time.
A long time fighting in the UFC. He's gone through a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and nobody has ever questioned his skill set. Like from the get-go, from when he was 20 or 21, he's been a special talent in regards to IQ. His IQ is just like, he's just one of those guys you just watch him all day fighting because he just does beautiful things. He's just like an artist at work when he's performing. Chandler is a little bit more, wrestly, I'll knock you outy kind of guy, and the lack of confidence I feel from the experience he's had in the octagon compared to Oliveira and the fight IQ. Like when Oliveira goes to the floor, he is just so dangerous. He throws up all sorts of crazy shit. If you watch any of his fights, he is just attacking, and he uses that concept of if he's not sweeping you, he's looking for a submission to create space to get up, So he uses his jiu-jitsu very, very well, a lot like the way Damian Maia does in the cage, And I feel like that you could say that unless Chandler knocks him out, I can't see his wrestling even being too much of an issue for Oliveira to deal with. I look at how he dealt with Kevin Lee, who's a very accomplished wrestler as well, I think he's going to come out with a win there.
Okay, well, we'll be having a look at that in a couple of weeks' time. That is taking place in Texas on the 15th of May. Again, that's going to be in front of a capacity crowd as crowds begin to return into UFC events. Miles, before we wrap this one up, there was news released earlier this week. Bellator have found a home for themselves in terms of Irish TV. They've announced a partnership deal with Virgin Media, which means Virgin Media 2 and Virgin Sport are going to be showing every single Bellator event live, as well as carrying Bellator news and
Very good.
updates between here and the rest of the year. We touched on the development of MMA in Ireland with Tim Murphy a couple of weeks back. Knowing, say, from your participation within Bellator and the string of Irish fighters that are still there, that are both fighting in the US and are fighting on the European series, it can only really be a good thing for MMA in Ireland to get a deal like this.
Yeah, very good. It's great to hear that they have a TV deal now, and I feel like that, you know, anything to do with a massive promotion like that, like Bellator and UFC are hand in hand. You know, you could arguably say that some of the divisions in Bellator are far more talent ridden than the UFC divisions. You know, it's just UFC is kind of what everybody knows. It's like McDonald's and Burger King, isn't it? You know, they're still the two big powerhouses, just McDonald's been around a bit longer and it's more marketable, isn't it? You know what I mean? So I feel like that anything to do with big promotions like that connected to the Irish market is just great.
Any temptation to step back in there if they come calling?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I'd jump in there and compete for sure. We would have to be with my manager though for 100%. So it'd have to be the right deal. I didn't have the greatest of relationships with Bellator before, but that's understandable too. There's politics in every game, so I see that Queally is now getting a great shot over in the USA, so that can only be good for me, you know, in regards to coming back after a bit of a long layoff now. So if I do go in there and compete, I'll be very quick to point out where he is and where I expect to be too.
Excellent. Well, you never know. We might see it popping up on Virgin Media or Virgin Sport, or like they have done in the UK as well. They've signed a deal with BBC, so the reach for Bellator from an Irish, UK, and a European market in general, gaining way more ground. Miles, if people would like to get in touch, have a word, question anything MMA related or training related, what's the best way to find you?
Just touch base with me on Miles Price MMA. My Instagram handle would be the best.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, he's been Miles Price. I've been Ken McGuire. This has been All Things MMA, and we'll do it again next week. Good luck.
Good luck.